Hey guys, so today we're back with another computer that has an issue where the customer sent the laptop off to Dell for repair and then got the laptop back. It was fine for about a day and then a hinge got broken. So basically what I found out after looking into this laptop inside is that the technicians at Dell over tightened one of the screws that goes through these 2 points here into the hinges and snapped the I don't know what you call them. The word is escaping me this morning because it's still fairly early for me. But anyway, these little pieces that go here, they were snapped, and essentially the computer will not stay together when the customer opens the computer. So what we're doing here today is to replace the entire Palmrest assembly. And the Palmrest, if you're not familiar with what that is when you open up a laptop, the Palmrest is where the keyboard lives, it's where your trackpad lives, where your power button is, the whole bottom assembly. And the first step to do after you get the laptop open, always, if you're going to be working inside of it at all, is pull the battery cable. Pull the battery cable. And that will prevent you from having an issue with shorting something out. I'm going to start by taking out the battery. Okay, so no screws holding the trackpad in here, which means they're probably below the motherboard. So that means the motherboard actually has to come out first. We've got the motherboard disconnected from the lower components here, so now I should be able to just start removing the motherboard. What I'd like to do before I start removing the motherboard is remove the motherboard from anything that attaches to the top half of the laptop. That way we don't risk breaking the screen in addition to the Palmrest, because hinges and stuff, that's the part that's broken, but we don't want to lose anything screen wise. Screens can be really expensive to repair, and I don't want to be on the hook for a screen repair. It looks like they double-sided taped this in there, that's the power port. So, and set that aside. And then what we're going to work on now that we've got that out, is actually pulling the motherboard out of the computer. To start with, we probably have to remove fans and cooling, because there's probably some screws that live underneath of the fans. It's not uncommon to have to remove fans when removing a motherboard. Sometimes you can pull it all out as one assembly, but it's definitely more rare than you would imagine. So fan is going to come out. This will be a good opportunity too, because you can see that there's some dust bunnies up in that fan. So I'll be taking some time to clean out the dust bunnies. And you guys might be asking yourself, well, how much does something like this cost? And the fact is I bill by the hour. So the longer it takes, the more it costs. So a repair like this, you're going to pay a lot more in parts than you will in labor, because the parts themselves actually end up costing more in the long run. And the reason they end up costing more is because, well, they're parts. And they're special. When I say they're special, I mean that they're specific to a laptop like this. So you have to make sure that whatever you're buying is correct the first time, so you don't get the wrong parts. Okay, the screw doesn't really want to come out. There we go. You might notice a white box off to my left over here. That's one of the 3D printed boxes that I have for holding screws. This computer's been sitting here in a holding pattern for several weeks now, just because we've been waiting on the new part to come, and it finally arrived. Also, if you're ever curious about how much it costs to replace a motherboard in one of these, the motherboard itself costs a fair bit, a pretty penny. Dell doesn't cheap out when they put these things together, so don't expect that you're not going to have to pay anything, because obviously, or pay a low amount, because that's just not the case. But here's your motherboard, and handled with proper care, it should be fine. You can see we've got a coin cell battery that's plugged in here, and that's on the bottom side. And that's the side of the motherboard that nobody really ever sees because it stays face down. And realistically, there's not really a reason to be on that side of the motherboard unless you're doing something very specific. So we've pulled the motherboard out with the SSD and all the connections that are necessary right there. So, all right, we're going to set the motherboard aside for the time being. We're going to set it over here. Put it on that bottom cover, what it usually gets exposed to. I'm going to pull the strips here along the bottom of the trackpad, because I know the trackpad has to come out, because I know for certain, oh, that's yucky, there's some trackpad stuff, crumbs and whatever else. That's what gets in your trackpad when you leave like food on your fingers. Yeah. Alright, so we've got this here. This here. I don't anticipate the trackpad being a terribly difficult thing to take out. I'm also going to remove the keyboard. I don't know if the new one has a keyboard or not. It's not really something I want to take a chance on, so I'm going to make sure that we get everything out that needs to be out. And then this is this has some like adhesive here. We're gonna pull that back, see if we can expose this, and then maybe pull this trackpad out of here. There we go. And there's the trackpad. Alright guys, so basically what I'm doing here at this point is working on transferring stuff from one Palmrest into the other. So I'm kind of evaluating what needs to be done, kind of pointing out what needs to be transferred over. So you can see that tiny little board there down at the bottom. That tiny little board handles the keyboard input and the backlight, as well as, I believe, parts of the trackpad input after we reinstall that. So I have transferred things over. You can see I'm moving over the power button. And then this old trackpad should be leaving the table any second now. So I want to thank you guys for watching this content, just because I know it's not the most exciting, but I also want to say I'm starting to try to include some funky tracks as background music for you. And we're going to just go ahead and play the rest of this in reverse, and not in reverse, but install this motherboard basically back into the Palmrest, but do everything we did before in reverse. So kick back, relax, and enjoy the tunes, because I'm going to crank them up a little bit for you. Now this next brief segment, you're going to see me fiddle with this for a little bit here, and the reason is because one of the pins actually bent on that charging, where that charge port plugs into the laptop. So I'm taking the tweezers and I'm working on pushing those pins back into position, just because I don't want to leave the customer with a broken computer. The point is to bring it here and make it better, right? So got those pins bent back, and then moving on to just reinstalling the Wi-Fi card. And the reason for me pulling out the supplemental screw kit here is just to replace the hinge screws that are stuck in the part of the Palmrest that broke off on the original unit. So I oftentimes will supplement with aftermarket screws if something has been broken or is lost. And now we're reinstalling that battery, and we should be getting really close to the end here, guys. Into this whatsoever. Alright guys, well, I want to say thank you for watching. I have a customer that decided to show up 17 minutes early this time to their appointment that is at 11 o'clock. So for some reason, that's what's going on. But I was able to open the laptop up successfully, and you can watch it turn on.